The phone call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, waking me from the first decent sleep I'd had in weeks. "Miss Chen, this is Robert Martinez from Homeland Security Investigations. We need to schedule an urgent meeting regarding unauthorized transfer of classified defense assets." I sat up in bed, instantly alert. "I'm sorry, what?" "Stock certificates registered in your name were transferred yesterday without proper Department of Defense authorization. The securities in question are tied to classified defense contracts. We need to speak with you today." My stomach dropped. The shares. The ones Dad had been complaining about for months. "I'll be at your office within the hour," I said. After hanging up, I pulled up my investment account on my phone. The screen loaded slowly and then I saw it. Certificate transfer completed. 50,000 shares of Apex Systems Incorporated transferred to Gerald Chin. Authorization: Catherine Chin. Except I hadn't authorized anything. I called Dad immediately. It went to voicemail. I called again. And again. Finally a text: "Relax. I sold those worthless tech stocks you've been hoarding. Used the money to invest in something real. You can thank me later. We'll discuss at Sunday dinner." My hands shook as I typed back, "You forged my signature?" "Dad, don't be dramatic. I'm your father. Those shares were just sitting there doing nothing. I got you $28,000. That's more than you'd ever see from some startup nobody's heard of." I stared at the message, my mind racing through implications he couldn't begin to comprehend. Those shares weren't from a random startup. Apex Systems Incorporated was a defense contractor I'd joined 6 years ago, fresh out of MIT with a degree in aerospace engineering. The company specialized in satellite encryption systems for the Pentagon. Every employee received stock options as part of their compensation package. Stock options that were classified as sensitive assets under Department of Defense regulations. Stock options that required federal approval for any transfer or sale. Stock options my father had just illegally sold. Build-up. The Homeland Security office was downtown in a nondescript federal building. Robert Martinez met me in a secure conference room with 2 other agents and a woman from the Department of Defense. "Miss Chin, thank you for coming so quickly," Martinez said, gesturing to a chair. "Can you walk us through what happened yesterday?" I explained everything. Dad's constant criticism of my worthless tech job, his dismissal of my career in aerospace engineering, his belief that I was wasting my potential on computer stuff, instead of pursuing something real, like my brother's career in commercial real estate. "He's been asking about my stock portfolio for months," I continued, "saying I should sell and invest in property. I kept telling him the shares weren't liquid, that there were restrictions, but he never listened." The DoD representative, Linda Watts, leaned forward. "Did you ever explain that these were defense-related assets?" I tried. Multiple times. He thinks I work for a regular tech company. He doesn't understand what Apex Systems actually does. "And you never gave him authorization to access your investment accounts?" "Never. I don't know how he got my login credentials or forged the transfer documents." Martinez pulled out a file. "We've already started investigating. Your father contacted Preston Financial Services yesterday morning, claiming to be acting on your behalf. He provided what appeared to be a power of attorney document with your signature." "I never signed a power of attorney." "We know. Our forensics team is examining the documents now. The signature is a clear forgery." Martinez paused. "Miss Chin, do you understand the severity of this situation?" "I work in classified aerospace engineering," I said quietly. "I understand exactly how severe this is." Linda Watts opened her own folder. Apex Systems holds 3 active Pentagon contracts for satellite encryption systems used in classified military communications. Employees with stock options are considered to have potential access to sensitive information about company valuation, contract status, and strategic direction. The unauthorized transfer or sale of these securities is a federal crime under 18 U.S.C. Section 793, mishandling of defense information. My father didn't know. "Ignorance isn't a defense," Martinez interrupted gently. "He forged federal documents and illegally transferred classified assets. The buyer of those shares is also under investigation for accepting securities without proper DoD clearance." I closed my eyes. What happens now? "We need to recover the shares and reverse the sale. We'll be interviewing your father today. Depending on his cooperation, he could face charges ranging from forgery to espionage-related offenses. Espionage? He's not a spy. He's stubborn and dismissive and thinks he knows better than everyone else. He illegally transferred defense-related assets without authorization, Linda said firmly. Whether he intended to compromise national security is irrelevant. The law is clear. They took my statement for 2 hours, recording every detail of Dad's access to my information, his attitude toward my career, his insistence that my aerospace engineering work was just playing with computers. When I finally left the federal building, I had 17 missed calls from family members. The group chat was exploding. Dad, federal agents just showed up at my house. Catherine, what did you do? Mom, why are government people asking about stock certificates? What's going on? My brother David, Dad said you sicked Homeland Security on him over some worthless tech stocks. That's insane. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to my apartment and pulled out every document related to my Apex Systems employment. The stock option agreement I'd signed 6 years ago had a full page of DoD restrictions in bold text. These securities are subject to Department of Defense oversight. Any transfer, sale, or assignment requires written authorization from DoD Security Compliance Division. Unauthorized transfer may result in criminal prosecution under federal law. I tried to explain this to Dad a dozen times. He'd waved it off as government bureaucracy and fine print that doesn't matter. Now it mattered very much. Sunday dinner was mandatory in our family, but I almost skipped it. Eventually, I decided facing them directly was better than letting rumors spread. I arrived to find everyone already seated. Mom, Dad, David and his wife Stephanie and my Aunt Linda. The tension was immediate and suffocating. Finally, Dad said, not looking at me, maybe you can explain to everyone why federal agents are harassing me over trying to help you. I sat down carefully. I didn't send federal agents. The Department of Defense monitors all transfers of classified assets. When you forged my signature and illegally sold restricted securities, their system automatically flagged it. Restricted securities, Dad scoffed. They're tech stocks from a company nobody's heard of. I got you $28,000. You should be grateful. Those shares are currently worth $847,000, I said quietly. The table went silent. David recovered first. That's impossible. Dad said you worked for some small startup. I work for Apex Systems. We're a defense contractor specializing in satellite encryption for the Pentagon. We hold classified contracts worth $340 million. The company went public last year, but employee shares remain restricted under DoD regulations. Mom's face had gone pale. $800,000? Current valuation, yes. But I can't sell them without DoD approval, which takes 6 to 12 months and requires extensive security review. Dad forged documents and sold them to an unauthorized buyer, which is a federal crime. I was helping you liquidate assets, Dad protested. You said yourself you couldn't access the money. I said I couldn't access them because they're classified defense assets, I interrupted. There's a difference between can't access and illegal to transfer. Stephanie looked confused. Why would stock certificates be classified? Because they represent ownership in a company with access to military encryption systems. Anyone holding significant shares could theoretically influence company decisions that affect national security. That's why all transfers require federal approval. This is ridiculous, Dad said. I'm your father. I was looking out for your interests. You forged my signature on federal documents and illegally transferred classified assets. The agents told me you could face up to 10 years in prison. The silence was deafening. Aunt Linda finally spoke. Catherine, surely you can fix this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was forgery and illegal transfer of defense-related securities. I can't fix a federal crime. Revelation. The investigation moved quickly. By Wednesday, federal agents had interviewed the broker Dad used, the buyer of the shares, and multiple witnesses to Dad's statements about helping Catherine access her worthless assets. Martinez called me with updates. We've recovered the shares and reversed the sale. The buyer is cooperating fully. He claims your father assured him all paperwork was legitimate and you'd authorized the transfer. What about my father? He's retaining a lawyer. The U.S. attorney is deciding whether to press charges. Thursday morning, Dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red, wearing yesterday's clothes. "You have to drop this," he said without preamble. "Tell them you gave me permission. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." "I can't lie to federal investigators, Dad. That's a felony. I'm your father. I was trying to help." "You were trying to control," I corrected. "You've spent 6 years dismissing my career as worthless, insisting I wasted my MIT degree on computer stuff, telling everyone I work for some nobody startup. You never once asked what Apex Systems actually does. Because you're not a real engineer. You sit at a computer all day." "I design encryption protocols for military satellite communications," I interrupted. "I have top-secret security clearance. I work on systems that protect classified Pentagon communications from foreign interference. My team's latest project is currently deployed on 17 different military satellites." Dad stared at me. "You never said." "I tried. Constantly. You talked over me every single time. At last year's Thanksgiving I mentioned working on satellite systems and you literally laughed and said, 'That's nice, honey. David, tell us about your real estate portfolio.' I didn't know it was classified work." "You didn't want to know. You decided years ago that David's commercial real estate career was real success and my aerospace engineering was just playing around. You made that decision without ever asking for details. I'm going to prison because I didn't ask enough questions? You're facing charges because you forged federal documents and illegally transferred classified defense assets. The not asking questions part just explains why you were stupid enough to do it." Dad's face flushed with anger. "So you're just going to stand by and watch them destroy me?" "I'm going to tell the truth. What happens after that is consequence of your choices, not mine." He left without another word. The family group chat erupted again. "David, Catherine refuses to help Dad. She's going to let him go to prison over a technicality." "Mom, how can you do this to your own father?" "Aunt Linda, this is what happens when you value career over family." I muted the notifications. Friday afternoon Martinez called again. "The U.S. attorney has decided to offer a plea agreement. If your father pleads guilty to forgery and unauthorized access to financial accounts, they'll drop the defense-related charges. He'd face probation, fines, and community service instead of prison time. And if he doesn't take the plea, they'll prosecute on all counts, including mishandling of classified assets. He'd be looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison." "What do I need to do?" "Nothing. This is between the U.S. attorney and your father's lawyer. But Miss Chin, your cooperation with this investigation has been noted. Your security clearance review came back perfect. DOD is satisfied you had no involvement in the illegal transfer." After he hung up, I sat in my apartment thinking about Dad's constant dismissal, his certainty that he knew better, his absolute refusal to believe my career was legitimate. Resolution. Dad took the plea agreement. The news was quiet. A small article in the legal section about a man pleading guilty to forgery and unauthorized access to financial accounts. No mention of the defense-related aspects which remained classified. He received 2 years probation, $50,000 in fines and 500 hours of community service. His lawyer called it extremely fortunate given the circumstances. Sunday dinner the following week was excruciating. "We need to move past this," Mom said, her voice tight. "What's done is done. The family needs to heal." "I agree," I said. "But healing requires acknowledgement. Dad forged my signature, illegally sold classified assets worth almost $1 million and nearly went to prison for it. That's not something we just move past." David glared at me. "He made a mistake. He thought he was helping you. He made a choice based on years of dismissing my career and assuming he knew better. That wasn't a mistake, that was arrogance with federal consequences." "So you're going to hold this over him forever?" Stephanie asked. "I'm going to remember that my family didn't value my career until federal agents made it impossible to ignore." Dad hadn't said a word throughout dinner. Finally he spoke. "How much are the shares worth now?" $923,000 as of yesterday's valuation. He absorbed this. "And you design what exactly?" "Encryption protocols for military satellite communications. Specifically, I work on quantum-resistant algorithms to protect classified Pentagon transmissions from next-generation cyber threats. That sounds important. It is. I've been trying to tell you that for 6 years. The silence stretched uncomfortably. I'm sorry, Dad said finally. For dismissing your work. For not listening. He swallowed hard, for forging your signature and nearly destroying both our lives. Thank you, I said quietly. But apologies without changed behavior don't mean much. What do you want from me? I want you to ask about my work. Actually listen when I talk about projects. Stop comparing my career to David's as if real estate is the only legitimate profession. And never ever touch my financial accounts again. Fair enough. The relationship is still strained. David barely speaks to me, convinced I should have handled it quietly, instead of cooperating with federal investigators. Mom asks careful questions now, afraid of saying the wrong thing. Aunt Linda stopped coming to family dinners altogether. But Dad asks about my projects now. Last week he wanted to know about the quantum encryption system we're developing. I explained the basics, the parts that aren't classified, and he listened. Actually listened without dismissing or comparing or minimizing. That's impressive, he said when I finished. I didn't understand what you were doing. I should have asked sooner. Yes, I agreed. You should have. The Apex Systems shares remain in my account, still restricted, still growing in value. Last month they crossed $1.1 million. Eventually, when I leave the company or the DoD grants transfer approval, I'll be able to liquidate them. But the value isn't really about the money. It's about validation, not from family but from the federal government that investigated Dad's illegal transfer and confirmed what I'd been saying all along. My career matters, my work is legitimate, and my assets are literally classified as important to national security. Dad wanted to sell worthless tech stocks to fund real investments. Instead, he triggered a federal investigation that proved those stocks, and the career behind them, were more valuable than he'd ever imagined. Every probation check-in he attends, every community service hour he completes, is a reminder that dismissing someone's work without understanding it can have serious consequences. He thought my shares were just paper. The Pentagon disagreed. And that disagreement cost him $50,000, 2 years of probation, and whatever remained of his certainty that he knew better than everyone else. I still work on satellite encryption systems. I still hold top-secret clearance. And my family finally understands that, just playing with computers, means protecting national security communications for the most powerful military in the world. Dad's mistake taught him respect. The federal investigation taught him humility. And the classified assets he tried to sell taught him that sometimes, the child he dismissed actually knows exactly what she's doing.